What is going on in this world? What is going on? I'm trying to figure that out because there is a crazy divide between men and women recently. I'm just going to come out guns a-blazing here. I think that this is absolutely a part of the agenda that has been set by the toxic global elite class that is really here to divide the household. When the man and the woman are going up against each other head to head, that is going to create a lot of weak families, a lot of weak people. And I think that that is a problem with today's society is we are filled with weakness. Welcome back to another episode of the Danna-Gift show. Don't ask. I'm just here. Just here existing. And I'm also ovulating. Yay me. It is a good day when the period is over and the estrogen is no longer consuming my mind where I cannot think straight. Yay. I'm having a bit of testosterone being pumped into my body, which means I feel like I could take on the world. Today's episode, I am super excited to talk about because it is one kind of near and dear to my heart. The war on the man versus female, man versus woman. What is going on in this world? What is going on? I'm trying to figure that out because there is a crazy divide between men and women recently. Now, I will say this divide kind of existed for quite some time now. It's not new, but I feel like it's gotten worse. And you can tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. Let me know if you disagree. But I almost across the board am going to guarantee that you would agree with me. There is something going on in the world. So let's talk about it because I think that this is, I'm just going to come out guns a-blazing here. I think that this is absolutely a part of the agenda that has been set by the toxic global elite class that is really here to divide the household, to divide the nuclear family, because united we stand, divided we fall. And this is so true because humans, we are pack creatures and we need each other to survive. And when the man and the woman are going up against each other head to head, that is going to create a lot of weak families, a lot of weak people. And I think that that is a problem with today's society is we are filled with weakness, weak people, people who are overly sensitive, people who cannot take it upon themselves any responsibility for the way that their lives have unraveled and instead would choose or prefer to point the finger elsewhere. And so that's a problem. Why is it so important that we learn how to respect each other? So there's so many different points to this. Okay. And this is not, again, this is not to go and point the finger at other people. That is not what we're doing right now. What I'm talking about is personal responsibility of the man and the woman. Okay. Because this conversation has absolutely gotten crazy and skewed because of the agenda that has been set. Men are becoming weaker because they are being raised by women who are unstable. I'm not saying that all single moms are unstable. I'm saying many single moms are unstable because they don't have the man in their life to ground them. And so they're teaching their kids to also become unstable, not consciously, not at their own fault, but it's just happening. So men are becoming weaker, becoming more emotional, more in tune with their emotional side, which that part is great, but too far into their feminine. And this is a problem because when men are too far into their feminine, they cannot lead. They instead look at the female to lead, and instead of taking any responsibility, they point the finger. So let's go back to some of the Bible stuff, right? Okay. Adam and Eve, in the very beginning, Eve took the apple and bit the forbidden apple, and they ended up feeling shameful about their nakedness. And so they put clothes, little leaves and stuff to cover themselves up. And when God called on them, he said, Adam, where are you? And Adam basically was hiding from him and was like, sorry, God, I didn't want to come out because I felt ashamed. And God's like, well, who taught you to be ashamed? And he's like, well, it was Eve. Eve gave me the apple. You said not to eat the apple, but I ate the apple. And so Eve definitely like did this. Like, that's basically, look at the beginning of time of how men would like to blame women for their downfall. I'm not trying to say that men cannot take responsibility, but that is the result of a man not being strong enough to hold his ground against a woman. And look, I am all for women empowerment. I love us girlies. I love myself as a woman. But for the longest time, I had basically been programmed to become a man in a man-driven world. Today's society, like, if you look at all of the stuff online, everything that is being pushed out, it is all geared towards women becoming more independent, basically how they don't need no man, how we can do it all, how we don't need men in our lives, how we don't, basically just shoving it down our throats that we should not have men in our lives because all they do is oppress us. All they do is cause us problems. All they do is XYZ. Right now, to a certain degree, I agree, right? I do understand that a lot of men have caused a lot of stress in a lot of women, and we are traumatized, okay? But that doesn't mean that we have to go back around and basically castrate men, right? We need men in our lives. Men need women in their lives. I feel like I'm ranting here, and I apologize if I'm going a little off here. So let's talk about a few problems here. Men, we need stronger men across the board. Men, if you go back into the Bible, are meant to be leaders. The reason why is because they are physically built to withstand hard times. They are physically and mentally built to withstand hard times, to be the mountain in rocky situations. Whereas women, we are designed biologically to be more emotional, to be very detail oriented, and to observe small things and turn them into bigger things so that we can encourage our men to take care of these problems. If you really look at the biological design of men and women's brains, we are designed differently. We think differently. And because we have different hormones being pumped into us consistently from the time we are understood to be male or female, biologically, I mean, you have a penis or a vagina, different hormones are pushed into your body dependent on if you are a male or a female, a man or a woman. Now, for so many years, people have tried to tell us that, oh, well, she's only acting like a woman because she's programmed this way. And we've been, basically catered to understand womanhood because they programmed us. They give us babies, like these toy babies at a very young age. We're basically programming our children to become mothers and blah, blah, blah. Like, no. There are studies shown from kids who don't even know the difference really between male or female, who naturally desire these female things and men desire these male things. There was a study one day, I read this in a book somewhere, called The Female Brain. I'm not going to gatekeep. It is such a good book. If you guys want to know a little bit more about this, highly, highly recommend. But there is a study in there that talks about a little girl who is given the option of having a ton of different toys. And they gave her a toy truck, right? Usually, typically a boy thing, right? Boys love their little trucks. And instead of playing with it as a truck, she naturally started to hold it as a baby and decided that she wanted to treat it as such, as a baby. This is like a 4-year-old girl who doesn't understand the difference between male or female, doesn't understand the assignment or the programming of male toys versus female toys. Now, when there is an imbalance of hormones, meaning to say maybe a girl is producing a little bit more testosterone than a typical female, she will be a little bit more acting like a boy. She will be more competitive. She will be more aggressive when it comes to playing with others. And it's not to say that there's right or wrong, but the point I'm trying to drive home here is that there is a difference between male and female. And if we don't learn how to respect the differences, we're going to de-evolutionize ourselves. We're going to go backwards, which I feel like that is kind of what's happening right now, which is why I'm so passionate about this topic. I guess what I'm trying to say is there are so many different agendas that are being pushed out to each and every one of us, telling us that, women are needing to be these hyper independent women, and then we're being pushed to be in the workforce and basically perform like a man, but yet still have womanly duties, like have the family, take care of the family, take care of the home, all of this. And we are getting burnt the F out. And women, like, as much as I vouch for the boss babe, like, I love you. I used to be a boss babe myself. If you go back into any of my content, you'll see who I was. But this is not to say that we can't do it, but we shouldn't be pushing ourselves to the extent that we do, because we need to allow men to step up to the plate and become better leaders to guide our society to a better tomorrow. If you would have played this video for me years ago, like years ago, Donna versus today, Donna, I would not have listened to a freaking word I said, because I would be like, this bitch is crazy. This bitch is like housewived up. She believes in gender roles and blah, 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 blah. Like, I believe that there needs to be balance between our hormones. Now, whether that is the female becoming more of the provider and protector of the family, and the man stays home, like, whatever you want to do, there needs to be polarity for it to work in the relationship. But overall, like, if you really dig down into it, like, even go back into the Bible and the way that everything has been designed, if we go back to how the Creator says we are designed, the nuclear family is the successful family. For the most part, right? There are couples out there who are able to, like same-sex couples, right? Gay couples are able to make it work because there is usually a polarity that exists. And they are able to find balance between that, be able to find balance within their hormones. There is a huge difference between male and females, and it's a beautiful thing. Men need to be operating more like men if they want to reach their fullest potential and to be happy in what they do. But that requires a lot of self-reflection, a lot of accountability, a lot of responsibility. And women, the more we can learn how to get a hold of our emotions and not be led by them, instead allow them to be more of a influencer on what we do, but not be driven by them, we're going to be in a much better place as well. Men need to man the fuck up. And I'm going to say this, and it's not to point the finger, but I will say that men have the power to create the strong household by leading by example. Women can too, but there are studies across the board that show that when the dad is in the household and say he decides to pursue God, that it is an 85% chance more likely that the rest of the family will choose to follow God. Whereas if the mom does it, it's a significantly lower amount. Men have the power to physically take us to the next level. But women have the power to cause chaos within the house and also have the power to create harmony within the house. We each have our role to play. The way I like to picture it is, here's a good metaphor. The man, let's go back to hunter-gatherer days, right? The man typically would be the one to go out, get the food, and bring it back. The woman takes care of the household at home. She receives the food from the man, turns it into a meal, and then creates harmony within the household. Now, women, we are designed to be more detail oriented, to be more introspective, to be literally our hippocampus, which is the house in our brain for our emotions and memory. It is literally larger in our brain than men. So we are designed to be able to nitpick at the different things within the household that could cause potential harm, which is why if you look at women across the board, we're constantly on the lookout of like things that could endanger us, things that could hurt us, things that could hurt the family, right? And we seem nitpicky and emotional because we actually are. We are more nitpicky and emotional, but that is a beautiful thing about a woman because that is what helps us evolve. The woman in the household will say, if you're like I'm just going to say a straw house, right? You're in a straw house. If there is a hole within the house, the woman will notice it. It is out of place. Something stands out of it. She'll notice it. And so her job is to notice holes within the household so that she can inform the man. And the man will patch up the hole. The man will take the action and actually create the safety that is necessary within the household. And so she's kind of like the indicator, right? She'll let him know that it's time, that something needs to happen within the household, that something is not right within the household. So she protects the home. And then the man goes out and moves the family forward. And there's really a beauty in this dance. It's not to say that one is better than the other. It's not to say that one is more valued than the other, because we both need it. We both need each other to make the household strong. If a man was left to his own demise, a bunch of men just playing together, they would be able to accomplish quite a bit, but they would be severely unhappy. They would also not have enough feedback to dive into their deeper feelings. They wouldn't be able to manage what is going on in their head. They wouldn't be able to communicate very well what is going on. So a woman can help bring that out of a man, right? She can inspire him to share more. She can inspire him to actually enjoy all of the things that he's doing in life. Because a lot of the time, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but a lot of successful men do not know how to tap into their emotions. A lot of successful men, because they haven't, they chose career over a girlfriend or relationship, just don't know how to tap into their emotions. And so they end up emotionally unintelligent, but they seem high value because these women are looking for security within the house. And a lot of the time, that provider, that security is in the form of finances within the household. God, there's just so many like different areas I can dive into with this. But basically, I think what I'm trying to say here is ultimately there needs to be a level of respect for the differences. The problem that we see a lot is that a lot of us are so close-minded to think that just because somebody doesn't operate the way that we do, that they're doing it wrong. And that is so far from the truth. Women are looking at men saying, how inconsiderate can you be? How aggressive can you be? How yada, 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 toxic masculinity, all of that. Because we are comparing it to ourselves. We say things like, oh, I wouldn't have handled it that way, or I wouldn't have responded in that way, or I wouldn't have done this. Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't have, because you're a woman and you think differently. Your desires are different. Hormones actually impact your thought process. It could literally change the way you think. It could change your desires. Women have different stages as well in our hormones. One stage, when we're like in the more adolescent stage, again, read the female brain. So crazy. So good. I'm going to read the male brain next. But anyways, we have different stages that pump different hormones within our body that cause us to have different desires depending on what stage we are in. Example is when women get baby fever. Like, I'm at that age where my hormones are really pushing this desire to start a family. Because humans overall, preservation is like of the utmost importance. And that means creating a family bloodline. That means surviving. That means procreation. And so we are designed to want to procreate. Not all women, I'm going to say most women. And so because of this design, men have a weak point of women. They are drawn in by the beauty. They are drawn in by their carefree attitude. They're drawn in by womanhood, by femininity, because it's something that they don't have. I mean, they have it, but it's different within a woman, right? And vice versa. Women are drawn to men because of their groundedness, their ability to provide, they love the alpha male, right? And it's also, again, designed for the highest, the best evolution possible. We're nitpicky because we select our mate dependent on a few things that show that he's a viable partner to create a family with. Is he strong? Is he physically taking care of himself? Does he have a good job to provide that security? All of these things we look at because subconsciously we are always looking for the best mate to create the strongest offspring and the most secure household so that we can survive. It's literally like, it's crazy. I can dive into so many different little rabbit holes, which I feel like I kind of did today. So I apologize if I'm kind of scatterbrained, but we really do need each other. And I have such a love and respect for both men and women. We really need to learn how to love and respect one another. So if we don't, our world we're going to continue to go backwards. We need to stop comparing everybody to our personal story and deeming it as right or wrong. Of course, there's some like morally wrong things that are very clearly, observably wrong, like abuse, verbally or physically. Obviously, those things are wrong, that we can all agree on are wrong. But sometimes we think that things are wrong and they're really not wrong. It's just a difference in thinking and a difference in priority. Like, men are very single focused. Women are very diffused focus. Where, like, probably why I'm going off on like 10 different rabbit holes today. For example, Dylan, when he's been working all day, if he comes in and wants to take a lunch, if I try to have a conversation with him, like while he's just like grabbing things and needs to like get back into work, he would be frustrated with me. And I used to take it personal when he wouldn't respond to me or when he's like seemed agitated in his response. And my thought was, oh my gosh, he's inconsiderate. He thinks I'm a nuisance, yada, yada. Like, all of these thoughts would run through my head. But the fact of the matter is, he's a man who's single focused and he's focused on getting back to work. And things that get in the way of his focus, it's hard for him to kind of toggle between the two things that are pulling at his attention. Whereas a woman, we are so good at jumping between so many different tasks. which is why we're so good at running a household, which is why we're so good at running the family. Because you can see a female watching her favorite TV show. She's got the laundry running. She's doing the dishes. But a man probably wouldn't do that. They can, but for the most part, they're very single focused. So they would want to do one thing at a time. The way I like to see it, it's like I imagine a battlefield, right? And the man is at the front fighting any like really detrimental things that are coming our way. And while at the same time, still walking forward and progressing the family forward. The woman is behind, out of harm, out of danger, out of not in the crossfire, creating a force field around the family and supporting the man. I think of like a woman with, like, if I could draw this, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm going to throw it into ChatGPT and see if it could draw this, but like a man like just fighting and like going at it, and a woman just with her force field protecting the family and like encouraging him, like chanting towards him to keep moving forward and giving him the power to keep moving forward. At the end of the day, when we learn how to work with each other and respect each other and love each other for each other's differences, that's when we go from just living and surviving to thriving and having a fulfilling, happy life. Yes, there's going to be some times where we disagree on things because we think differently. But that's okay. Life is not supposed to be all sunshine and rainbows all the freaking time. If that was the case, we would never evolve. We would never change. We would never feel inspired to change. Because when was the last time you felt like you had a major shift in your life just because, even though everything was perfect? Probably never, right? Like, it wasn't until something really freaking horrible happened that you're like, oh crap, I should probably get my shit together. You're like, this is so painful. I never want to go through this again. How do we change it? That's when we make major change in our life. So we have to learn to embrace the fire and embrace each other and our differences, and not get so like wrapped up in one thing that goes wrong and suddenly he's the biggest red flag or she's the biggest red flag, and then you end that relationship. Like, the agenda is telling us to be isolated and remain independent because it gives them more power, because we're unstable, because we don't have each other. We're all trying to stand on our own. But when a man and a woman come together, especially under the Holy Trinity, under God, they are unstoppable. Unstoppable. And it makes me sad. It actually makes me sad that we live in a world and society that keeps telling us to remain independent and to basically take people out of our lives the minute there's a bit of discomfort. We will not evolve if that's all we do is cut people out of our lives. And you will continue to meet the same problem over and over in the shape of different people until you actually are able to look inwards and decide that you can control the ways in which you respond. That your emotions are controllable. There are some things that just happen naturally within the body, like fear, right? Fear or excitement, or like you can't help it when you have these things, but you can control your response to those things. I want us women and men to learn how to get along. And the only way we can do that is by taking a better look at ourselves and correcting ourselves and taking responsibility even though we think we're right. I know it doesn't make any sense sometimes. There are times where like Dylan and I will be in the middle of an argument and I'm like, I know I'm right in this situation, But sometimes I have to humble myself because the goal isn't to be right. The goal is to be right with him. And sometimes that means I have to take a step back from my ego and choose the love of that relationship over being right. And that's easier said than done. So we have to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of others. Not to say you have to be single all the way until like you know how to love yourself, because it's a journey. It's not a like one thing you accomplish and all of a sudden you know how to love yourself 100% of the time. That doesn't happen. It's a practice that needs to be done all the time. And you're never going to get it perfect. I want us to learn how to take responsibility, because once we are able to do that and learn how to love and respect each other, we can begin to see progress in the relationships that we hold. I hate that there is so much of an agenda to basically put us against each other, for women to hate on men. There's all these like trends all over TikTok that are like, oh, let me wear these clothes so that men hate me. And it's just crazy. The words that we put out there that absolutely keep us stuck. The whole toxic masculinity, the whole gaslighting and all. I get it. I'm so glad that we're able to put a label on the ways that these characteristics show up. I'm glad that we're able to define them. But we really should be using that definition to help explain something, but not to categorize all men as such or all women as such. And these trends just like come out left and right about these buzzwords, basically just trash talking both men and women. And it's putting us against each other. Modern feminism, I don't even want to get started down. That's a whole different podcast. I'll get into that, but it's wild. Then you got a bunch of men who are like just so weak-minded, who don't want to take ownership of their family, who don't want that weight of responsibility. And so they take the back seat and let their woman lead. So you're telling me you're going to have her pop out a baby, lead the household, take care of the home, take care of you, because basically you're like the child now at this point. And what are you going to do? What do you provide if you're 50-50? And she's taking care of the family and the household and everything else in between. This is one of those cases like what do you provide? Maybe some emotional stability? Sure. That is actually helpful for a lot of women. And some women, that's really all they want. Which, if that's the case, sure. My ending point here, as I wrap up the podcast for the day. We went deep. We went a little too far and a little off track here. But, welcome to the Danna-Gift show, where we go down any rabbit hole that opens. The point is we need to stop looking at each other and getting upset at each other for operating the way we were designed to operate. Learning how to respect each other begins with learning how to respect ourselves first. And women, especially my boss babes out there, I feel you. I used to be her. We need to learn the beauty of what it's like to actually be a woman. And not a woman operating as a man, but like allowing ourselves to be this playful nature, allowing ourselves to be in flow, allowing ourselves to open up our hearts again. Anyways, that is my viewpoint. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Danna-Gift show, where I drop weekly podcast. Just started up again after taking a year off. I'm super excited. That's my take on it, on men versus women. And I really, really hope that there is some unity that we find here, that we learn to appreciate each other for men being men and women being women, and like not criticizing men who want to be more in their masculine, and women to stop turning their men into their girlfriends, and then getting upset when they're not. And honestly, women starting families more. Like, I don't have one yet, but I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to have a family now. And I feel like people have really taken away the beauty of a stay-at-home mom who commits herself to her family. There's so much like trash talk about a woman who decides to stay home and spend time with the family versus go back to work. Men will call this woman a gold digger. Women will say, well, now you have no rights and now he owns you. But in a true loving relationship, like that's not even a question. Like, if she wants to go to work, she will. And he will support that. But a woman who chooses to stay home with her family and commit herself to her family should be honored and respected. Like, our values have completely gone to shit lately. Our morals have gone to shit. We got men turning into women, women turning into men. Everybody's all confused. Nobody understands their hormones. And instead of taking responsibility, we point the finger and we say it's everyone else causing this stress in me. It's everyone else causing this pain that I feel. You're responsible for your own happiness. And you will be a lot happier when you learn how to deal with yourself. We're in a world with other humans. That is just the point blank period. That is it. We will always be with other humans. There is no avoiding them. So learn how to stop allowing your external world affect you internally. Anyways, that is my point. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I know I kind of went on a little bit of a rant today, but you know, that it do be like that sometimes because sometimes I have a lot to say, and this is what happens. If there's anything that you want me to cover or have an opinion about, make sure you leave it in the comment section or send me a DM. I'm super excited to have this podcast evolve, because I think there's just a lot of juicy things that we can all talk about. So yeah, thank you for joining in. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do so. I do weekly podcast drops, and see you next time. Bye.